Welcome to God Almighty Christian Community Services, GACCS, Behavioral Health Series. And this week we are talking about anxiety. We're grateful to have with us today Tyler Smith, who is about to graduate from Michigan State University. And Tyler will be speaking to managing anxiety. So, Tyler, we're just so grateful that we are able to have you just come and have some open and honest conversation. And so, how would you describe anxiety?
Yes, well, one, thank you so much for having me. And when I think about anxiety personally, I think about just debilitating feeling almost about anything and everything possibly going wrong. It makes you feel worrisome almost, and it's a physical feeling that comes along with that. So sometimes you feel it in your nervous system where you just feel like an unusual, like jittery feeling, or you just feel like there's always something you have to do, or you have to always be on the go, and you have these constant racing thoughts, and you feel like you have to seek out an answer almost for every single thought that comes your way.
Oh, this is so good and so honest. Can you describe a time when you felt particularly anxious and what led to that feeling?
Yep, I think a time when I felt particularly anxious, most recently is when I thought about the climate crisis that was happening in America. And I thought about how not too long ago we had a big wildfire case happening in California, and then the news just started fear-mongering the public and telling us about how many more bad things were happening in the world. And it just made me feel worried, basically. It made me feel like I was out of control. It made me feel like everything was out of my hands and there's nothing I can do. And in that moment. So my brain started racing with questions, and I constantly kept providing it with answers that led to only more questions, which actually, in return, increases the sense of anxiety.
It's good that you're sharing that because what are some of the common triggers for your anxiety, both within and outside of the academic environment? And I think you mentioned a few.
Yep. So some of the common triggers, like I say, is honestly the news sometimes. Sometimes you have to really put a balance on how much news intake you're taking because we live in a world that is not amazing sometimes, and we will see a lot of bad things happening. So the news is one of the triggers. Academically, sometimes just being overloaded with an amount of work that you can't handle with all in that day. That's why it's so important to make a schedule and just plan everything accordingly so that way your brain can regulate it and really process it. I feel like when we try to overprocess things, we try to overwork ourselves, this is what triggers anxiety because your brain feels like it has to constantly solve every problem you throw at it.
So honest and so true. What and how has anxiety impacted you academically and even in your social life, just your overall well-being? What's been the impact?
Yeah, I would definitely say how anxiety has impacted my performance in my social life and my overall well-being. It had a drastic impact when it first started. When I first experienced anxiety, it was such a new feeling and such an overwhelming feeling, something I have never felt for such a prolonged moment in my time. I mean, in time. And when that happened, I remember I kind of cut off my social life a little bit. I wasn't going out as much. I wasn't talking to people as much. My academic performance went down. I remember just steering away from doing a lot of homework and extracurriculars because I felt like I had to constantly get a solution to this anxiety or I had to constantly just answer every racing thought that I had. And now looking back at those moments, I realized what has actually helped me get out of those moments of anxiety is being open to understanding emotions, understand that every emotion you feel is fleeting. And this has actually encouraged me to be more social and encouraged me to talk to more people and be more open and vulnerable with people. And what you end up finding out is a lot of people deal with anxiety and a lot of people deal with the sense of worry, especially in the society that we live in. So it started off pretty bad, but I ended up trying to find a silver lining in it. And I used that to my benefit, actually.
That's good that you were brave enough to see what it is you can do. I'm going to jump here. Let's talk about some coping mechanisms and some strategies. So, what strategies or coping mechanism do you find helpful when managing your own anxiety?
Yep. So some of the coping mechanisms that I find helpful for managing my own anxiety, one of them I just talked about, which is being social. Sometimes we find ourselves getting so lost in our brains and in our thoughts and feeling as if like it's the end of the world if we don't answer these questions. And if I don't figure this out right now, it's like, how is this going to help? How is this going to affect me in the next upcoming minute or days or hours, etc. And I find out when I talk to more people, all of those feelings and thoughts start to subside because you realize the most important thing is really right in front of you. And sometimes what I do if I don't have anyone to be social with, I find myself going outside. I find myself praying. I find myself doing things that necessarily just ground me and clear my thoughts.
Good for you. Have you sought any professional help or support for your anxiety? And if so, what has been that experience? What's it like?
Yep, I have definitely seeked professional support for my anxiety. And what I find out is when you attend these therapy sessions or these counseling sessions for anxiety, I find out that you are talking a lot about what you're feeling in the moments of anxiety and what triggers your anxiety. And what you end up finding out is you kind of become your own self-therapist because no one can really get you out of the mindset of being anxious other than you because you're the one that knows what triggers you. You're the one that knows what you need to provide to yourself. And your therapist or your counselor just helps you, just kind of reinforces that you're not alone in the journey and that a lot of people go through it and that the real solution to anxiety is really just acceptance and accepting that this emotion is going to come, it's going to go. You don't feel anxious forever, these moments are going to consistently pass.
So it sounds like you had the ability to learn yourself. You knew what triggered you. You began to learn what experiences, what you had to do to bring yourself back. Tell me, because it sounds like you're doing some self-care. How do you prioritize self-care and well-being?
Yep. Ways I prioritize self-care and well-being is really just spending a lot of time outside or just spending a lot of time being social and being in extracurriculars because I find that this really soothes my brain and really allows me to work on what I enjoy doing. Where I feel like anxiety really has you put a lot of energy to things that you don't really want to worry about, things you don't want to do. And you have to realize there's this sense of control almost that you have to take over your brain and really redirect your energy to things that are serving you. And that's something that I've been telling myself for the past few weeks is how is this serving me? How is the topic I'm being anxious about? How is it serving me? And if I can't find a way that's serving me, I'll redirect it to something more that's serving me a lot better. So some of the few practices I've been doing is going to the gym. I've been, like I said, going out to eat with friends, or even sometimes I find myself reading the Bible, and that's been helping a lot actually, because in the Bible you find that there's a lot of issues that have been going on since the beginning of time, and you're not alone, and that's the most beautiful part about being able to read the Bible is because there's so many different stories in the Bible that you can find yourself relating to.
Yeah, that is so true. There are so many where people have been depressed. You just think of all their victories and then they turn around and they find themselves depressed and a little anxious. So this is no surprise to God, huh? For sure,
God.
for sure. How do you navigate the challenge of, college life while managing anxiety? I'm sure. Tell me, how does being in school really add to your anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, navigating the challenges of college life while managing anxiety is not an easy task, I must say, especially when you have to study for an exam or a quiz or anything coming up, or even working in a group setting sometimes. You will constantly feel these bombarding thoughts about having to worry about other things going on in your life and like it really make it hard to focus on the task at hand. And sometimes the best thing to do is be vulnerable with your group or is be vulnerable with yourself and saying, hey, I'm feeling anxious right now. How much can I do in this moment? And really give yourself that grace. And when you're working on studying and doing things like just preparing for what is to come or what is expected from you academically, sometimes you have to set like a time restraint, like, okay, I'm going to study right now for about 30 minutes to an hour, give myself a 5 minute or 10 minute break just to really check in with myself. Constantly just be your own best friend when you're feeling anxious. And that's how you will get through these moments of anxiety. Just constantly keep pouring love back into yourself. And I promise you, your brain is going to be grounded again and you're going to come back to. So,
Wow, that is so rich. Be your own best friend. What advice would you give to other college students who are struggling with anxiety?
yeah. So the advice I would give to other college students struggling with anxiety is one, seek help if that's what it's calling for. You know, if you feel like this feeling is debilitating, is really taking a toll out of your life, seek help. You know, talk to a nearby friend first, and I promise you, you'll probably end up finding out a lot of people have felt the feeling of anxiety before. And even if that isn't working, then seek further help. You know what I mean? Go to a therapist, talk to your parents. That's what helped me a lot. I found out my parents helped me way more than any therapist could help me because they have lived so much life and a lot of things I've been anxious about before they've felt before, you know, and it means a lot coming from a family member hearing that they've struggled with the same feelings and the same thoughts that I've had before. And even beyond that, you're just know you have a best friend in God. And like I was talking about reading the Bible and praying. Prayer works because something I realized about anxiety is one day you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna be anxious at all. And then sometimes your brain is gonna try to figure out why you're not anxious. But you have to really give it to God and just be so grateful and thankful that God took the anxiety away from you. And I promise you, practicing gratitude as well will also help you
So
overcome
good.
anxiety.
You have shared so greatly. What are your hopes and aspirations for the future and where, does anxiety fit in with any of that for you, Tyler?
Yeah, I think for my hopes and futures, this is really going to help me when I think about my major and how I'm already dealing with sociology, how I'm already dealing with public policy, and how I want to work in the field of labor relations. And this really, I feel like it's going to help me be more personable when I actually do get into my field of work, because now I'm going to understand the different struggles that people go through. I'm not just looking at their exterior, you know what I mean? I'm ready to really understand the people that I'm working with and really get into why they do the things they do and how they're working and how can I be the best supervisor or manager for them. And I feel like anxiety is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we have to look at the things that we're going through as a superpower and how it can be used to help and serve other people. So that's what I'm excited for. And that's how I feel like anxiety is actually going to help me, surprisingly.
We are excited for you, Tyler. You have done just, you have been honest and open about something that I think has been a hidden because oftentimes people think that they can't share this. It's something to be embarrassed about. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words you'd like to say to our audience?
Any final words I'd like to say? I would really just like to say keep going. You know, resilience is key. There's a lot of days where the devil is going to want to tear you down, really. And what you have to remember is that means that God has something in store for you, and that's going to push you way further than the devil can tear you down. Just knowing that God has something in store for you, and that's why the devil is fighting so hard because there's something great coming your way.
Well, we just want to thank Tyler so much for sharing of himself. Tyler, you have done an excellent job. We are just grateful to you. And so we just bid you the best and just want to say thank you for sharing of yourself.